Here we go again. This is Bobby Blitz of Overkill, and that's right, I'm in charge because I say so. And we're blowing it up on Capital Chaos TV. Stay tuned.
Metalheads continue to get a bad name, right?
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, just...
You know, it's funny because, I mean, we're a great community together. I think it started off as kind of the island of misfit toys, but, I mean, when you get when you're all kind of the misfit toys, you actually, there's a great energy around it. And I think that we all have a feeling of belonging. It's almost like a religious experience in many cases. You know, if you're in for life, you're in for life. And this is where you go to, let's say, be yourself. And I think out of that comes something really great. But when it started, we were kind of the degenerate group over here on the left. You know, we were those guys that would, pop you on the head. We just did a video for a song called Goddamn Trouble, and it portrays the metalhead from those days, from those cassette days, and how it was kind of thought. You know, he's a pickpocket, he's a guy to steal the beers. It's not necessarily the truth these days. It was to show the other side of it and where it's become to, or where it has arrived in 2017.
So I wanted to ask you about interesting. You guys were starting out on the East Coast, so you guys, Anthrax, Nuclear Assault at some point or whatever, and then you had bands on the West Coast, Metallica and Slayer and Megadeth and whatnot. So it's kind of unique that you had like a similar style of music that was kind of evolving in two different areas, and I guess maybe some of that was the influences of music that you guys were listening to or whatever. But I just wanted to go back to that a little bit and was there kind of a rivalry there, or was there more of a camaraderie about with you guys on the East and West Coast, or you didn't really think about it? You were just doing your thing.
Well, I always thought of them as my ugly cousins. You know, I never.
Some of them are ugly.
But rivalry is kind of a good thing, and competitiveness. You know, so for sure you're competing, but not necessarily in an unfriendly way. I mean, I've remained friends with the Exodus guys since, Bonded by Blood meets Field of Fire. You know, and it's and that competition, I think, still exists. I mean, you go in to win. If you go into to be mediocre, I mean, you're not going to get great results. Who wins on that competition except for the person who presses play on the next Exodus or Overkill record? So I think that's kind of a good thing. But I think the similarities changed from the East to the West because of our punk scenes were different. You know, we grew up in New York City where our punk was almost like... oh my God, it was like pop at, Mach 10. You know, when you're listening to the Ramones, the Dead Boys, the Heartbreakers, this is where we came out. These guys had the Dead Kennedys and, and Fear and some, different approaches to it. So you take the new wave of British heavy metal and mix it in with the different kinds of punk. I think that's where you get similarities to coast, but individualities from growing in the East or growing in the West. Yeah.
All right, so... just recently dropped the 18th album, right? Am I correct? 18th album, the Grinding Wheel. So we'll talk about that and how it's been received and your thoughts on that.
Well, good. I mean, the excitement level's always from the inside. That's the way it has to be. This many years into it, I still, like we talked about competition. I still go in to win. I still like to compete against myself. I still like to push myself. I'd like to consider myself still a student this many years into it, as opposed to, I know everything, And if that's the case, then you really have nothing new to offer. But the excitement comes from being able to offer something different. Even though they're individual characteristics we've used in the past, we've pulled them out of the past and given them a fresh coat of paint. And that's kind of the idea of mixing and matching that stuff, not losing our identity, but showing that we came from the new wave of British heavy metal, that East Coast punk vibe. We love Motorhead rock and roll. We love epic doomy kind of stuff. We love the Sabbath groove. If you put all this in a bag and throw it out on the floor, that's kind of overkill. And I think that what the Grinding Wheel contains is those elements with that fresh coat of paint, with validity in the current day, and that's what makes it valuable to me.
So one thing that's interesting, you guys have a long 30-some year career. I mean, 37 going back to the original, or 31, 6 or whatever.
I was 7 years old when this band started. 7 fucking years old.
Creeping up on 45.
I'll leave
start
it
again.
I mean, that's awesome.
Motorhead. People refer to you sometimes as the Motorhead of thrash.
I've heard that catch on, and in any...
I know you're the Overkill of thrash.
In any comparison to such a great band, and such a motivational band for the scene. I mean, we were doing Motorhead covers when we were doing Dead Boys and Iron Maiden covers, so I mean, this is, and obviously the name of the band comes from a Motorhead song to some degree. I mean, for surely inspirational to us. Would I say that? I wouldn't say that, but I would say it's a hell of an honor just even for you to bring it up here, and I have heard it before. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I think we know who we are. We don't have an identity crisis. There's a great freedom in saying I don't give a shit. If you say, listen, man, I don't give a shit what you think. That's freedom. If you go, I don't give a shit what you think, you obviously give a shit what the other person thinks. So we're comfortable enough to know who we are and try to attain the goals that we set for ourselves.